the happiest hour of the day. And today we have a very special happy hour for you. We have Hetz Ventures, which is an Israeli VC that invest, for the most part, in DevOps companies, enabling us to have an AMA. So ask them anything. They have this amazing panel of experts, and we have an awesome moderator. So they're going to kick it off. Feel free to roast them and enjoy the food, and you guys will enjoy it later.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us so late. My name is Or. I'm from Hetz Ventures. For those who don't know Hetz Ventures, so we are early stage venture capital. You don't hear me? We are a early stage venture capital, and we invest. Our major investment is around DevOps, dev tool, infrastructure, etc. We're very excited to be here with all of you and with this amazing panel. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's start with maybe introducing the panel. So go ahead, Mandi.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Mandi Walls. I am a DevOps advocate at PagerDuty. PagerDuty makes your phone go ding, right, when things go wrong. If you recognize me, you used to work at Chef, so you may recognize me from there. If you're confused, like I now wear green instead of orange, and just happy to be here.
Hello, my name is Ilya. I'm a DevOps manager at SentinelOne. We're a very big cyber company doing EPP, EDR, XDR. Very glad to be here.
Hey all, I'm Niv from Tel Aviv. I'm leading the DevOps at Melio, and I'm an AWS community hero. Happy to be here as well. Ready for questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Tal Kain. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Velocity. I'm a tech in my background. Velocity is a company that is creating production-like environments for developers. We were invested by Hetz, Insight, and Greycroft, total of $22 million until now. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, guys. So before we start, I just want to say that the main point of this event, the Ask Me Anything panel, is that you will ask the question. If you won't do it, you will have to hear me asking question, and nobody wants it. So be with us. So maybe we'll start with our guest from abroad, Mandi. So I think that most of the people here in the audience know like what days in a DevOps engineer looks like, but I'm not sure that everyone understands like what is a DevOps advocate and what is the difference between DevRel and Dev advocacy and whatever. So maybe you will start and share with us like maybe what are your day-to-day looks like and what are your goal responsibility in the company, etc. And
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So I'm a DevOps advocate at a software company, and what that kind of means is we understand that DevOps is a combination of tools and culture. And PagerDuty is a tool, but to make the best use of it, you kind of have to adjust your culture a little bit. Like there are things that when we talk to large companies, there are things that they're doing sort of old school, right? And we kind of come in and say, hey, think about doing blameless postmortems. Think about, cleaning up some of those alerts so that, folks are having a better experience with their on-call. So we take a more cultural approach to what folks can be doing with their teams, not only to be successful with our product, but to have a successful DevOps culture at their organizations. So that's kind of where it's different from, doing day-to-day DevOps engineering. And part of that work is talking to customers, coming to events like this to talk to all of you. We run a podcast, we have a Twitch stream, like we are very much the multimedia center, but just trying to help folks understand that there's like a 360 view when you want to be doing DevOps.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So maybe a quick follow-up question because I'm curious. So definitely PagerDuty is a big company and there is like many different companies here in the audience. When do you think it's a good time, or when do you think you should hire a developer advocate and start?
That's a tough one, right? And it kind of depends, I think, on your product. So part of it, like my last job, we had an open source product. So like having community management and DevRel and those folks was a very early function, so that you are managing part of the open source product and like helping the community that way. PagerDuty is a SaaS, so you kind of get a little bit later in the life cycle of the company before you really figure out, well, the customers no longer look like us, right? And you kind of lose the same kind of discussion, and you want folks to like actually go in and do a little bit more in-depth cultural discussions with folks. So I would say you probably never want one before you have a marketing person. So like somebody tracks what I do and make sure I'm talking to the right people. Yeah, early is better, right? So you can get all the good talks with all the customers when they have questions.
Amazing. So maybe we'll move to Niv and Ilya. So you both, I would say, experienced manager in fast-growing companies. And I know Niv team, I'm not sure about Ilya teams, but I'm sure you did like a lot of mistakes and a lot of good stuff and bad stuff. And maybe you can share with us based on your experience, like maybe one or two things that you think that everyone here needs to know and you don't want them to do this mistake and think they were proud of. This can be tools, hiring, anything, yeah.
Okay, so one thing I'm glad I did, and we're totally standing behind it, is if you don't know, at Melio, we are almost 100% serverless, which means we don't have even a single Kubernetes cluster. Whoa! And yeah, sometimes it's for the best and sometimes it's for the worst. For example, there are people here who were candidates at Melio for the DevOps team, and they chose other teams that do have Kubernetes. So sometimes not having Kubernetes is not the most attractive things for candidates, but it is the right thing for us because we actually evaluated the actual needs of our infrastructure before choosing the technology. And we didn't just went with the trend in the industry. So I'm glad we did it because we actually evaluate the needs every time we choose a new infrastructure or we start a new service. So this is a thing that I completely stand behind. A thing that not so much of regret doing, but I would have done differently in hindsight, is that I led the DevOps for a year and a half in a company that was in hypergrowth, that still is in hypergrowth, without having a VP R&D. So we basically had a VP product, but we didn't have a VP R&D. And I feel like nowadays I have more tools to cope with it in a way that it's more healthy for the company than I had at the get-go. So that's about it.
My example is a bit more abstract. So I think what I'm proud from the last 12 months is the focus that we're doing on evaluating trade-offs and making good decision on what we are going to build by ourselves, what we're going to adopt, and which technical gaps we're going to take care ASAP, and what we can live another quarter with. This practice give us a very good flexibility to deliver fast and still take care of our gaps. This is something that took us time to do the right way. And this is, I think, something that I'm very proud from the last year.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Maybe last question on my end, and then I hope that some of you will ask some questions. Tal, it's for you. So Ilya already started to speak about build versus buy, let's call it that way. And it's a big question, I think, that everyone asking themselves, like any company, that startups specifically asking themselves. We know that winning R&D budget is a tough one. And yeah, I'm really curious if you can share with us, like, why, when you started Velocity, why did you think that Velocity is something that everyone needs to buy and not build inside their companies?
Yeah, so I personally love this question because I had the same question for everything that we are buying for our for our team. And I think it's from the developer prism, it's always about the focus. Can we focus on what the customers need and what the company is trying to solve? So from my point of view, when you grow fast and you want to move as fast as possible, everything that is not your core business is something that you need to think really hard, whether you actually want to move your focus from your target and actually build something like that. So in Velocity's case, we saw a lot of companies that having production-like environments or dev environments was not the focus of the company, and yet it was such a huge pain for them that they didn't have the choice but actually build something like that. And it took a ton of resources, not just in money, but actually in developers' time. And it's not just about building something, it's actually maintaining it afterwards. So the cost of it is just huge. So for the build versus buy, when you think about the developers as the buyer, it's about audience that actually can build things by themselves, and yet it's about the focus. So I think it's mostly on, can I find something that actually solves my problem, actually solves the problem that I can let go of this area and use something out of the box. I think that even when we look at companies such as Datadog, for example, some of the companies would say, okay, this is too expensive, and I would try to build it by myself because I can actually do it. But at the same time, again, it's about the focus. And what we saw is that for a lot of companies, the idea of just buying a solution that is actually solving the problem for them and giving a lot of knowledge from other companies into one solution was much more beneficial for them. So I think that the build versus buy, even when you can build, it's about mostly focus. So that was my perspective.
Thank you very much. Yeah, someone from the audience. Yeah.
Hi. Whoa. I have a question for Melio. Sorry, I forgot your name. Niv. My name is Amir. I work for Aqua Security as a DevOps engineer. So you talked about you being 100% serverless. Almost 99.99. Could you share a little bit about your journey on, how did you get to this point where you feel that this is like the right thing for you to do? For example, I work at a team that recently inherited a very big serverless stack, and we used to run with Kubernetes. And now we're facing this, really fatal decision. Where do we go? We cannot maintain both frameworks. It takes a lot of effort. If you could share a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Thanks.
So actually, funny story, Shimon right there behind you and myself, we had a talk a few weeks ago at the reInvent, and we did a total comparison of Kubernetes versus serverless, like side-by-side cost, maintainability, developer experience, et cetera, So if you want to hear the full comparison, it's on YouTube. At Melio specifically, it was a decision that started from day one. And it's not that we decided to go on serverless from day one, but our mantra is whatever can be managed is managed, and it will be as serverless as possible. Which actually means that if there is a service in AWS that can do it, we will choose it. If there's a service in AWS that is more serverless, then it will probably be our solution. So basically, what it means is that most of our production is running on Lambdas, like completely, like 90%, something like that. We have a few single ECS tasks on Fargate, but almost everything is running on Lambdas. And how we deal with it is that for us, DevOps is a culture. It's not just a team that does DevOps. All the developers know that they develop for Lambdas. All the developers know the limitations of Lambdas, SQS, SNS, etc. And my team, the DevOps team, is not a bottleneck for the developers. We're using CloudFormation SAM, the serverless model of AWS. And we open it for the developers to use and to build their own infrastructure. So they don't have to wait for someone from the DevOps team to help them start a Lambda. When it comes to managing both Kubernetes and serverless, I think that there is a whole overhead because working on them, developing on them is a bit different. Like you have different things that you need to be aware of. And I think that here it comes to the operations, to the DevOps, SRE, however you want to call it, team, to work on a good developer experience, to minimize the learning curve of developers that develop for both Kubernetes and serverless. And I think that this is the main issue, at least in my opinion, because the operation team, it's our job to manage it. We will handle it. But I think that it shouldn't come on development time.
I have a question which is probably related to what Niv just said. When it comes to many of you work with DevOps teams, and I want to hear what kind of problems, what kind of non-existent tool you would like to have at some point, which would simplify your developer experience. Because I believe that all of you use some infrastructure as code tool. Maybe you are doing it happily. Maybe something works well, something is not working. And one day you would wake up and then kind of open your laptop and find this magic tool. What is this tool? Tell me.
I will start thinking from a general point of view. I think that it's kind of like relates to what Niv said. It's about the self-serviceability. I think that there is the idea of DevOps giving amazing experience for developers by giving them the ability to be independent as possible. So I think it's about every connection between developers and DevOps and what the request that they actually ask from DevOps. So I see that from the prism of velocity of creating their environments. There are cases where it's actually spinning up resources or doing anything else regarding the observability. We see companies that are leveraging solutions such as Backstage and Clutch and all these areas of how can you actually create the source of truth for developers to go to and understand what's going on. So hopefully I managed to answer some portion of your question, but in my humble opinion, it's mostly on how can you make developers as self-service as possible from the DevOps point of view.
For myself, one of the biggest challenges is not that we're lacking some tool that we can use, but the time of the adoption of and the integration of this tool. When we evaluating stuff, we also trying to put estimation how much time will it take us to use it the right way as a vendor meant to use it. And a lot of time we came to conclusion that it will take us too much time. It will be cheaper for us just to build exactly what we need. And also unit test for Terraform.
Yeah, sorry, I have a follow-up question. Since nobody mentioned ChatGPT so far, and we are like 20 minutes into this discussion. So what is your take on ChatGPT to replace some of the burden which we have when it comes to finding the solution? Like usually what we are ending up is anyway, going to Google Stack Overflow, finding some piece of code from GitHub by some keywords. Isn't it cool to ask a little bit more straightforward, hey, ChatGPT, how can I do something? And it just comes up with some good solution. What do you think about these AI tools in general?
Yeah, the ChatGPT stuff is really interesting. And I think from a replacing your boilerplate perspective and giving you a leg up for getting started with stuff, I think Terraform GPT would be kind of amazing. And the thing that I'm looking forward to with it is that when you look at Stack Overflow and you look at the things that you're searching for in Google, that's static and it lives forever. And I'm learning Python, so I'm pulling up these Stack Overflow threads from 2012, and I'm like, this is not what I want. And I think that one of the benefits with some of these AI tools is that they're going to learn and grow. and you're going to get recent solutions and recent suggestions out of them, and they're going to get better over time. And that's going to be a huge benefit over finding something that's been locked in a Reddit thread for the last 10 years.
I hear tons of rants about the ChatGPT from puristic technology people, like, what is all the hype about? I mean, everything was already there. You just like sort of placed everything in one place. But I think that this is what innovation is about. It's like taking something from one field and putting it in a place where it doesn't exist. So I think this is innovation, like, no?
Hi. So you're talking about a lot about technology and adopting and services, but you don't talk much about the people. So my question is simple. What will be the success criteria for a DevOps team?
Can you elaborate, like people-wise? Okay, I have a good answer. People are like from the R&D that are outside of the DevOps team are not afraid to reach us out. They're not afraid that we're going to turn them out and like call them out like, this is a stupid question. So at our organization, people are actually not afraid of the DevOps team. I think it's a good place to be at.
Totally agree with Niv. I have like other philosophy for what is success for the DevOps team internally. So my like big focus is that everyone in the team will feel growth every quarter or 2 quarters. If I'm feeling that some of the team members didn't grow, could be technologically or in other areas, so I feel it problematic as me as a manager. This is my criteria for people managing.
So I will answer like in a general way for that. I think that from either DevOps or anyone from the R&D being able to really communicate from outside their own organization and being able to give the best service that they can give is probably a good way to. It's always about the people. So if you can communicate with other people from the company and you're enjoying that, that's amazing. I think that regarding R&D in general, the ability to connect to the business and to the customers and to the customer needs through the whole funnel of sales, marketing, and everyone that is actually seeing the customers face to face is part of it. It's about if you are creating a good communication inside the company, regardless of DevOps specifically, and the DevOps actually feel part of this product and being part of these ninjas that actually solves a problem, I think that's a successful team because they're part of the mission, I think. And DevOps might be disconnected to some extent, and if they can actually communicate with the rest of the company, I think that's a successful DevOps, in my humble opinion. Hopefully it answered some portion of your question.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much. So guys, I'm really sorry, but I got the cue that we are boring and we need to finish. So, so first of all, thank you very much to all of you that you came here and participate. We really appreciate it. Thank you for the community and everything that you are doing. Thank you for the DevOps Days organizer. We like you very, very much. And thank you for Hetz team and the one and only Liz. Our Liz. Woo!